not made in a cave in
If I could tell you
Afghanistan.
the allegations in the Kennedy case that I went to the bottom of and discredited, it's in the hundreds, okay? My book on the Kennedy case, which, by the way,
Reclaiming history.
yeah. Tom Hanks, he's doing a 10-hour miniseries on it. Just the first 2 chapters. It's the equivalent of 13 volumes of 400-page books with over 10,000 citations.
And you
okay?
missed the Secret Service
I didn't
stand,
mi-
Mr.
I didn't-
Bugliosi.
No, I didn't miss the Secret Service. No, I told you about the Secret Service. There were Secret Service agents that left the motorcade to keep back the surging crowds. Okay?
After the first shot?
No. After the first shot, there was one Secret Service agent. After the first shot entered upper right back of the president, exit right here. He got out because of the shot and raced. No, he was in the car behind the president, okay? He got out of the car. He raced towards the president's car, all right? By that time, the second shot had hit the president in the head, and the car sped forward like that, and he couldn't get back on. Is that the one you're talking about?
No.
Well, there's no other one. There's no KGB
Well,
ordering the Secret Service.
No, I agree
No, I
with
think I
that.
would-
Sounds
No,
crazy,
but here,
but-
but I have one more question in terms
No,
of
but
yesterday, in
I-
terms
I-
of JFK.
If I knew that there was
Well,
a
go
Secret
research
Service
it. Go
that-
look at this. Just
Listen, I've
Google
lived- I've
Secret
lived
Service
with the case
stand
for
down.
20 years.
Okay, all right. So then you.
And you're telling
I just
me-
have one more question in
Yeah,
terms
you're
of
telling me there's
JFK,
some- yeah, okay.
because all right, 11/22/63. We just passed 11/20/22,
That's right.
and so in terms of motive and the modus operandi of the murder, in terms of a serial murderer who leaves notes and that type of stuff, do you think it was a coincidence that Kennedy was murdered on the anniversary of the day that the banksters set out down to Jekyll Island to start the Federal Reserve?
That's a question.
Are you serious about that?
Oh, quite serious. I mean, 9/11/01, 7/7,
Okay, let me ask you-
3/11,
okay,
3/11 in Madrid was 911 days. I'm not a numerologist, but clearly the murders are.
Okay, all right. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes.
Where does that go? What point are you trying to make?
To the mental
What
makeup
point
of
are
the
you
murder.
trying to make? Who is behind it then?
Someone who thinks that 11/22 is an important date in history and that this man should not have been violating it in the way that he was about to do.
Some
He
unidentified
already
person.
did.
Well, I'm saying there was men who went down. There was exactly right. I mean, we know he was going to reincorporate the
I have
printing
I have
of
a
money
section-
back into our
I
government.
have a section where I, in Reclaiming History, where I set forth all the people who have been alleged to have been involved. It goes on and on, page after page after page after page, and they come up with arguments like yours. It never ever ends.
Well,
Let me give you an
All these
definitive
people
answer to
involved.
that.
All these people involved. If you read the book,
I didn't do it.
no, I can tell you this.
And I didn't do 9/11, and I'm
Well,
Jewish, and I'm not,
yeah, but
I
how
didn't
old
help
are you?
Mossad.
How old are you? 'Cause I want to know where you were that
31.
day. Okay, so I can't put you on
He's
the
got a
grassy
really
knoll.
good alibi.
No,
Really
I
good.
got a great alibi. I was not even a sperm, not even super sperm yet.
To finish up, because you make a good point and you ask a good question. Where is the evidence? If it was this big
Yeah.
conspiracy or small conspiracy, we have evidence. We have testimony by a gentleman named Norman Mineta, who was the U.S. Secretary of Transportation. That when the young military man, came into the room where Cheney was in the command center and asked.
Under the White House?
Yes,
Apparently
the
it was under
Peacock,
the White
yeah,
House.
exactly.
And this young man came in and said, Mr. Cheney, the plane is 50 miles out. Now the plane is 20 miles out. And his testimony, Norman Mineta's testimony, who I've talked to personally, he's a wonderful man. I have no reason to doubt that he would lie to a congressional hearing. He said, when the plane was 10 miles out, Mr. Cheney was asked if the order still stands, at which point Norman Mineta's testimony was that Cheney whipped his neck around and said, of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary? In an angry tone. At which point, whatever was about to hit the Pentagon
blew up
was
somehow.
de facto allowed to
Yeah.
hit the Pentagon.
Yeah.
None of the missile batteries went off. None of the cameras recorded what hit it. Now there is evidence and testimony of Cheney, for one, being part of a.
Okay, now, but
And Mineta
again,
reconfirmed
listen,
it.
listen, we're not going to solve any
Justice
problems.
point.
We're not going to
Yeah.
solve any problems tonight. But if
thought we were going to get to the bottom
If
of
I've
it.
accomplished one thing,
Yeah.
I've introduced a couple words into your vocabulary.
Okay.
And those words are, where does that go? Okay? Where does that go? All
Okay.
right. So Cheney did this, okay? Now, where does that go?
Wait, that's a big.
He
chunk
helped
there.
do it,
Okay,
probably.
wait a minute.
Probably.
Well, wait, you can't say what he said is being
Yes, the
suspicious.
evidence
Where does it go?
points to-
Here's where it goes.
Where does it go?
Here's where it goes. Okay, here's where it goes.
In Vince's
Who knows?
opinion, this
Here's
is where
where
it goes.
no. Here's where it goes.
We'd have to ask that age.
See if you're willing to say this. The Dick Cheney, who's an evil, despicable human being. Okay, and I believe that he places no value in human life. You believe that not only doesn't he place any value on human life, like Bush, couldn't care less if all these people are dead, but he sat down at a table and decided to murder 50,000 people.
I think when the
Are you willing to say that?
I'm willing to say this to that point. To that, excuse me.
More than this.
Let me say
Okay,
this.
if you're
because
willing
this-
to say that, all right.
Let me say
do
this.
all the
That
time.
Cheney decided, let's
You
murder
asked me a
50,000
question.
people.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah,
answer.
let him
it.
respond,
When
yeah.
Cheney sat down and wrote, or I guess co-wrote, the documents for the Project for a New American Century, they spelled out that they needed a catalyzing event to get the American citizenry behind war with the Middle East, and a catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. So I believe the evidence points to that it's likely, if not probable, that Cheney was central to a command structure or people inside of a cabal that helped orchestrate. I mean, for
Okay, well,
Christ's
he's a
sake,
part of the conspiracy
was
to
the
blow up the
president,
building.
too.
well, let's look at the reality. He took
Okay.
over shoot-down orders a few months before 9/11 and then rescinded those shoot-down
You don't have to
orders.
go on it, but you believe that Cheney was involved. Okay.
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe the evidence points that way.
So I believe that Cheney is a bad human being. I do not see him sitting down and saying, let's murder 50,000 people.
Well, do you think the generals, when they decide to sacrifice people, sit down and say, let's murder them? I
Now,
think he's
you,
casting
you,
it in.
you also have to realize this. If you say that, you got to say that not only am I willing to murder 50,000 people, but I'm willing to risk going to the gas chamber, right? Because he's got to know with a lot of people out there.
He
Someone
might
might
have considered it a risk with his hubris.
The Warren
Well,
Commission got
but
away with
he's
covering
got-
up the assassination of JFK and the
the
Secret
Warren
Service
Commission. They all got in the
stand-up.
back and decided to
I'm
cover it.
sorry. I'm sorry. I mean,
We should stay on point.
All right,
and
yeah.
I've got just 2 points, Mr. Bugliosi. All the scientific evidence that you need is really
Okay,
good.
well, if I have
Right
time,
there.
I'll look at it.
Irrefutable,
I can tell you I've been sent many,
incontrovertible.
many things.
Yeah, there's some people.
Well, and also,
probably let them out.
as far as the secret go,
Let me-
you made a point about the secret.
That's a good-
The Manhattan Project was kept secret very, very well, and it was it was the most massive effort in this
Employed
country
far
ever.
more people.
Employed far more people than probably what was taken for the controlled demolition of these
Well,
buildings.
you're making a
and it was
blanket
kept-
statement that it was kept secret. I'm not satisfied with that. I don't know. You may be
Well,
right.
we
or you
don't
may
think
be wrong.
9/11 was kept secret because we're
I'm
telling
just-
you about
You
it.
may be right or you may be
Yes.
wrong.
Yes, that's correct. That's
Ah,
correct.
I don't know
That's-
about that.
That's my understanding.
It's good.
Something else you have to consider, and I know what you're going to say, but to accept what you guys are talking about, you have to accept the proposition, I think, that Osama bin Laden was not involved in 9/11.
Oh, he very much was, as a patsy.
Oh, he was involved. Okay,
Yeah,
so-
he
so-
was the
Just
best
just like
patsy
Lee
of
Harvey
the
Oswald
decade.
was involved in being
now
blamed for
you've got
JFK's
Cheney
assassination.
and NORAD and the Jewish intelligence.
Could you call him
involved
Israeli
with Osama bin
intelligence?
It's an
Laden.
Israeli statecraft issue. It's not about religion any more than,
But
buttering children
Jewish-
is about Catholicism.
I mean, they do have
Jewish-
cyanine.
Jewish intelligence
Sorry.
is
That was good.
conspiring with Osama bin Laden? You don't mean that.
Of course.
You don't want anyone to hear you
Wait.
say that in public, do you?
No, of course.
they're
Mossad
interlocking-
has always blamed Arabs and done terrorism. Even
Okay, so
think
Mossad-
about the King David hotel bombing. That was the beginning of the modern era of international
I'm going to
terrorism.
make one further observation about Osama bin Laden. So Osama bin Laden is involved with all these people, okay? Are you aware of Tora Bora?
Not as much as you are, I'm sure. I've heard the term bandied around before.
Well, assuming arguendo that Osama was involved in 9/11, and Cheney knows it, okay? Are you aware that we didn't send one single troop up there to get him and silence him?
Wow.
I think Cheney was saying, we got to silence that SOB. He was
Nope.
involved with me.
No, they needed to extract the confession.
And we needed to keep the boogeyman
Maybe.
around for another
no.
10 or 20
He didn't
years
send
for an
one,
excuse
he didn't
to
send one
all this
troop up there
military
to get
money.
Osama bin Laden. And if I had conspired with Osama bin Laden to murder 3,000 people and I had a chance to silence him, I'd go up there and silence that SOB. No one went up
It's
there.
worked out pretty well
Do you
for
know-
them, despite
well,
of that.
It's true.
It's been an ongoing war, and they've had
Are,
enough
are you
reason.
aware who went up there?
The boogeyman still
The
exists.
Afghan warlords went up there, okay? And the Pakistani military prevented him from supposedly crossing across. But we sent 50 advisors and we bombed Tora Bora. We didn't send one single soldier up there. Now, I would think that if NORAD and Cheney and people like that were involved with bin Laden, they say, get up there and silence this son of a bitch. Because
question.
if we don't,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
we don't silence him, he's going to put the hat on us. And he's safe, and he's saying, look,
Look what they
I
did to
conspired
Khalid
with
Sheikh
Cheney.
Mohammed.
Well, you know
Go
why
ahead
they
ahead.
haven't found?
How come they didn't do that?
You know why they haven't found Osama bin Laden? And we had a conversation.
Because he's not even alive.
Well,
Maybe. That may be true, Mr. Bugliosi.
We had
All
a
right.
conversation.
I
Ask
appreciate
yourself,
it.
where does that go?
All right.
Watch
Thank
the
you.
video. Watch the video.
I kid you not.
And documents, not just this.
I'm not demeaning what you're saying here.
You will appreciate where
I'm
we're
not
coming.
categorically saying that you're wrong.
They
I haven't
will-
studied
they will
it.
appreciate
I'm telling you that
They think those plans were inadequate.
viscerally it sounds preposterous
It's
on its
shocking.
face.
It does.
I know, it is. It is shocking.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying
It
you're wrong.
does sound
I'm not saying you're
shocking.
wrong.
All right. And here you go. This the documents too, so you don't have just have discs.
I've only got one reference on JFK.